All right, folks, this is Sam LeCure. This is Pearls from the Diamond, and I just wanted to get that out of the way because now I got to get to this because I want to be honest with you guys about the thought that goes into, us trying to create this show. And I think about you guys. I think about who's might be listening. I think about what you might want to listen to, what you might want to hear. And that kept me up a little bit last night because I'm trying to do something specific. And this is the result. So we'll bring in my guest now so he can hear what I tried to put together, and I'll sing him a little song. All right. So it's I don't know. I didn't do the chords real good, Smokey, but it's hello. I'm Sam LeCure. This is Pearls from the Diamond. We've got a guest. He plays guitar. He's a major league all-star. So welcome to the show, my boy Bronson Arroyo. I wrote that just for you, Smoke Dog.
There we go.
I bet you've never had that one before.
No, that was the country version of.
I know, dude. I was like, what are the chords that I can put together that make this sound like Pearl Jam or something like that? But I couldn't transpose it quick enough. So welcome to the show, my man. Thanks for joining me on a snowy morning in Cincinnati.
Yeah, kind of nice to look outside and see that this morning.
A little bit too dangerous for me to go to the gym today, so I get to hang here and talk with you. So, quick intro, yes, folks, it's Bronson Arroyo. He is a major league all-star. Got a Gold Glove in his pocket. Spent many years. How many years did you end up in the big leagues, Bronson? 15, 16?
15.
15, that's a lot of 200 inning seasons. Got a world championship under his belt and even wore cornrows while he was winning it. So that's so this guy's had a big time career and he's moved on to some other things. But one of the most eclectic, interesting guys I've ever been around. He was a teammate. He was a mentor. Now he's a friend of mine. Bronson. So I want to start there since I mentioned the World Series. They just came out with that documentary, and people, a couple of buddies of mine are big Red Sox fans, so I'm always hearing about it. And they said you played, had some pretty big parts in there as far as sound bites. So I haven't got to see it yet. What'd you think about it? And tell us a little bit about that 04 season.
Yeah, well, I watched the comeback. I was getting so many text messages from it. I watched it on the way home from Costa Rica the other day, and it's pretty amazing. I mean, every time you watch the comeback against the Yankees. I mean, down 0-3, got beat 19-8 in Game 3. I actually started that game. It was just a complete blowout. And you watch it back, it feels like a movie. I mean, it feels like somebody scripted and wrote this thing. Not only that was, people don't ever talk about Fever Pitch, the movie with Jimmy Fallon.
Oh yeah.
Was being filmed inside these ballparks all year long. I can remember one day I'm standing on the top step of the dugout and the national anthem's going and they drop the flag from the outfield wall like it was opening day, and then you hear Jimmy Fallon screaming at Billy Hatcher, the first base coach for the Rays, and Derek Lowe looks at me and he's like, "What is this idiot doing?" And I'm like, "It's a movie, bro." He didn't even know they were doing a movie, but to have that go down all at the same time, they had to change the script. I mean, it was a magical year. I was on that team at age 28. And I was a solid player, but I hadn't really established myself at the major league level just yet. And, just to be flying behind Tim Wakefield and Derek Lowe and Pedro Martinez,
right,
and Kurt Schilling. I mean, it was just a dream come true. I mean, I just went out every day, tried to give the team a quality start. We had such a good offense. Even if you were down by 4 early, you felt like you always had a chance to win. And, I mean, that locker room was as wild as anything I've ever been around.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that's, comforting as far as probably when you guys got to 03, you talk about with the offense that you had and you guys had, you had starters that were going out there and eating up some innings. You never felt like you're out of it. And that probably led you to believe that you could come back from 03. I mean, a lot of guys talk about it, man, but I mean, you look and when in this year's World Series, when the Dodgers were up 3-0 on the Yankees, it's like, look, man, you got to believe as the Yankees that you can come back and do it while you're in it. You and I are looking at it, and even you being on an 0-3, a team that was down 0-3, you're like, look, man, I hope they put up a good fight, but this series is over. Because, I mean, every other time in history, it's been that way. So, man, what an amazing thing to be a part of. I'm sure that when we try to talk about some of the things that we've gone through, which we're gonna, it's just hard for people to really wrap their hands around that, wrap their mind around what it was like to be in that moment of history. I mean, history, bro.
Yeah, it was something that, it's really hard to describe to people, because even if you played in the big league locker room for a long time and you hadn't played in the Yankee Red Sox rivalry, especially back then with Pedro being in, being 99, the stadium's been sold out for 15 years straight every night, right? I mean, people would walk into the stadium. I'd sit up in the weight room and watch people just walk into the stadium, and it looked like they were coming with their kids to see the Beatles reunite. I mean, you know that this is probably the only time all year they're going to be able to come to the park. It's going to cost you $100 just to park, much less what the tickets cost you, and come into this monastery and just where Ted Williams played, and to watch these guys play. I mean, it was a show every single night. And then to come back, for the first time in history from that deficit, especially, adding Alex Rodriguez to the team that year, just added fuel onto the fire from 0-3 when Aaron Boone hits that home run and beats us in Game 7. So there's all these wild scenarios kind of going on. And it was, we have Bill Miller in the 7-hole who wins the batting title in 0-3, right? I mean, that's how good.
Yeah. I think, some of the conversations I'll have are about rivalries, and I wasn't planning on kind of going down this little hole, but I miss rivalries like that. Like, I don't feel like there is that in baseball anymore, because everybody's kind of buddy, everybody's out in center field, hugging and all that. And that's fine and good, but they're really, even the Red Sox Yankees doesn't feel like a true rivalry anymore, unless it's just among the fan base. I miss the rivalry that's on the field. When you and I were together, it was definitely Pittsburgh and St. Louis. Like, those were like, we're going to go after each other. And it felt like each game had the potential to go to a brawl. And I don't know. I don't want to see anybody get hurt, but I miss those kind of rivalries. And, even the Red Sox Yankees today, I don't feel like is that on the field dislike for each other. And I kind of miss that in baseball.
Yeah. It's a double-edged sword, because the game has cleaned itself up in some ways where, the clubhouses are a little bit more, amicable or enjoyable to be around if you're a young guy, right? Because the locker rooms have gotten younger, but there's less hazing going on, which in some ways is great for the guys to be comfortable and play at that level. But the flip side of that coin is what you're talking about, is like, sometimes you get young guys who run around a locker room thinking they own the place, and there's no respect inside that house. And also, like you said, playing in those rivalries sometimes. I mean, it's nice to see Johnny Cueto on the mound. In Pittsburgh, and they make you feel like you're in an NFL game, and the wide top getting beer thrown on them, which you don't want. But I mean, that type of intensity made it enjoyable sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so I want to talk about kind of, you and I spoke about it a little bit, kind of what my thought for Pearls from the Diamond is. I'm hoping Pearls of Wisdom from the baseball diamond. So I kind of want to start with you at the World Series. I would have to imagine the highlight of your career. It's got to be the highlight of anybody's, winning a world championship. But, talk to me a little bit about wherever you want to go with it, as far as, maybe it was something that was happening during your upbringing. You talk a lot about your father when you were inducted into the Reds Hall of Fame. He was a big part of it. Some of the challenges maybe you guys went through, or in your young career, or even major league career, when you were established and when you were good, some of the challenge, you went through Tommy John late in your career, maybe that's a thought, but some of the things that you went through to lead you to that world championship and lead you to the 15 years you spent in the big leagues, some of the things that you had to overcome, some things that stuck out to you that were a challenge that wouldn't have made you the pitcher or the man that you are today. I mean, I don't know if you had the thought about some of those things when I brought them up to you, or there's some that stuck out that, man, wouldn't have had my career had this not happened.
Right. Yeah. There's a collection of things that all starts in that weight room as a 5, 6, and 7-year-old kid with my father, right? I'm lifting these heavy weights. And so by the time I get to the rookie league, I'd been thinking about my body and about this sport in a way that most kids had not thought about by age 18. I was thinking about carbo loading. I was thinking about supplements. I was thinking about resting for those weight room workouts and how that was translating on the field. So that all was kind of like a positive thing that just put me ahead of everybody by probably 10 years mentally by the time I got to the rookie league. But then you go along in the minor leagues and you're always going to have some sort of a sticking point. And for me, it was basically that AAA big league gap in Pittsburgh. I was bouncing up and down for many years. I was inside of a locker room that could be pretty hostile. They didn't make you feel very welcome. I was a guy who was always free-spirited, had my hair in cornrows. I loved to, strum the guitar in the locker room. All these things at that time were being used against me as a tool of like making me feel uncomfortable. I'm walking in the locker room. These guys are calling, I'm getting called into the manager's office, and he's basically saying to me, "You pumpkin pie haircutted freak, why do you have those cornrows in your hair?" And I'm like looking over like, Pokey Reese has the same thing, bro, just because I'm white. What are we talking about here? But
yeah.
My head smashed, and Lloyd McClendon was telling me he'd send me and Jimmy Anderson to A-ball for dyeing our hair blonde. You know what I mean? So it was like there was uncomfortableness at the big league level. That was probably the first time that I felt like I had some adversity. And it took getting over to Boston, for them to kind of free me back up and feel like I was pitching at the minor league level again. So that was kind of the first test, of like, do you have some grit? Are you going to be able to pitch in this uncomfortable environment? I was pitching to Jason Kendall, who wasn't that interested in making a guy like me feel comfortable on the mound.
Right.
He enjoyed being the head of the locker room and having a little bit of that intimidation factor inside of there. And, when you're trying to get Mark McGwire and Jose Canseco out and Barry Bonds, and the guy who's catching you doesn't even make you feel that comfortable, pretty tough to do sometimes. So that was the first kind of challenge that I had, coming up.
And to add to that, I could see, I didn't know some of these things, right? So I'm learning about you just like, the folks listening are. I didn't know that about your upbringing. And some folks may not know that you came up with Pittsburgh. That's who you made your major league debut with. You got traded over to Boston for who?
I got picked up off the waiver wire by Theo Epstein. So I was out of options at the big league level with the Pirates, which meant they had to either keep me at the big league level in 2003 for the whole year or offer me up to every other team. And Theo Epstein picked me off the waiver wire at that time.
Okay. So yeah, but not everybody. I don't know that everybody knew you started with Pittsburgh. So you end up in Boston, and how beautiful is that you go into a clubhouse, the Dirtbags or whatever, whatever that group referred to themselves as, to where you were able to go in there and be yourself and start to blossom. But I wanted to go back to Jason Kendall, and not making guys feel welcome and how the game's changed in that regard. You mentioned double-edged sword, how you still would lead the clubhouse. When I was coming up, you hazed me. I remember it was in Denver. I think we were going from the airport in Denver to the hotel. Was my first memory of it. But you did it in such a way that absolutely made guys feel comfortable. Now knowing that part of your career and what you came from and how it molded you into, you still want to run the clubhouse and have there be a certain level of respect, but you want guys to come in there and be able to be themselves, because then you're able to perform on the field thoughtlessly, right? You're not trying to do it a certain way. You're trying to do it your way, and your way is good enough and your way is accepted. So I'd say, one, thank you for making me feel comfortable at the major league level. And two, for the folks listening, you had an experience, you learned from it, and you grew from it. And that's kind of helped shape you, into the guy that you are today. So so that was kind of your first challenge that you met when you were getting into the big leagues was just trying to feel comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah. And part of that was, exactly why that's who I was in the Reds locker room for many years, was because I had seen in my early years how this could really divide a locker room. I mean, I've never seen this before or even heard of this since. I mean, my first 2 days in the big leagues, maybe my first week in the big leagues, there was 2 full-on brawls between teammates on this team, right? I mean, one ended up in a broken jaw. And I mean, these guys are going at it in the locker room immediately after a game. Like, this was insanity to me. And then on top of that, you add on the fact that I'm pitching to somebody who's, not really communicating with me. You see them out at a bar or a restaurant, they don't talk to you. Not only do they not talk to you, but then you get to the clubhouse the next day and maybe your clothes are cut up because you were wearing, let's say, quote unquote, a pair of soccer shoes at a club or whatever, right? So there was a lot of that going on, and it definitely was hard to get over that hump. So by the time you were with me in a Cincinnati Reds locker room and I was throwing those team parties and having, running a radio show on the bus, all these things. It was all in good fun and in spirit, but to make everybody know that you were being seen, but also being part of the crew. It wasn't like excluded, in those pirate days. I can remember I would carry about 70 pounds worth of beer from the plane to the hotel, and I'd have to keep it on ice the whole time. And there would be times when my phone would ring at 3 o'clock in the morning. It didn't matter if I was pitching the next day or not, and they wanted those beers delivered to their room. And you'd bring them down there, and then the door would get slammed in your face. And not once did they ever say, "Hey, man, it's your night. Why don't you come into the party?" Right? It was always just
wow.
Bring the beers, right? And that subtlety and that detail changes everything about how you're hazing me, right? And so
yeah,
I tried to do it a bit differently when I was with you guys.
So I mean, what did you like when you were going through that, with when you were in Pittsburgh? I mean, that doesn't sound like fun at all, but you got yourself, I feel like, right? I mean, who do you turn to in that time when you look around your clubhouse and, it's supposed to be friendly, but it's not. So, you have to rely on yourself to go out there and get the information and put in the work. And, what did that teach you about yourself that I'm going to have to do this on my own? And do you feel in some ways that because you had to go through that it ended up helping you?
Yeah, I mean, it probably gave me some grit at the big league level to kind of be comfortable in an uncomfortable situation, because it really couldn't get much more uncomfortable. I'd get called up to the big leagues in Pittsburgh. I would have been dominating the minor leagues. I mean, I'm over 40 games over 500 at the minor league level. I've got 84 wins and like 40 something losses, right? So like, I'm as consistent as they come at all these levels down below the big leagues. And every time I get called up, they're questioning what I eat. They're questioning how I work out. They're questioning my mechanics. They're questioning my pitch selection. I've got Jason catching me, who doesn't really care to listen to my form of strategy. They don't want me to shake him off, right? They've taken all the tools that I use at the minor league level to be successful away from me for almost the parts of 3 years. And, it definitely made it easier to pitch in Yankee Stadium, with the Red Sox and dealing with 40 and 50,000 people in that intensity, because I'd come from a place where I was so uncomfortable inside my own locker room that it wasn't unusual to go out on the field and be able to, suppress the adrenaline and find a way to try to get the job done. But it definitely, I really didn't ever make it happen in Pittsburgh for parts of 3 years. And for all of those reasons, and at the very end, they finally said, "Hey, we're going to have the backup catcher catch you. Call the game however you want." And that was the last 3 months of 2002. And I put up like a 2 ERA from that point forward. And I thought, hey, next year I'll be a big league starter with the Pirates. And that's when I get claimed off the waiver wire to Boston.
Wow. That's wild, man. You said something about, and I wanted to ask you this. I never have. You said that you got called up to the big leagues. They're questioning your pitch selection, all this, and your mechanics. I never asked you where the leg kick came from. Like,
yeah,
was that just like something that was just natural when you were young, and like that's what you did and you fell into it? Or
it was, I was living in the Keys at the time. My parents were
Big Pine Key.
That's right. So I was living on Big Pine Key when I started in that weight room. It's about 30 minutes up from Key West. And in that Big Pine Key weight room, right outside, we would throw to a tire that was cemented onto a bucket, a white wall tire that I wind up pitching to until I was 18. And when I was first trying to figure out mechanics, we weren't looking in a mirror at the time. Nobody was filming you, right? So you're just trying to do it like whatever your brain was creating. And my parents were big Mets fans in 85 and 86. So watching Dwight Gooden. And Dwight Gooden had a high leg kick. And that's just what my childhood mind kind of efficiently morphed out of his leg kick, which was to use my foot to kind of flip my leg up instead of using my hip flexor to pick my leg up. And in that movement, it became very efficient for me to just flip my foot up, and my foot was up by my face, but I didn't feel it up there because my hamstrings were loose. So I just felt like, I'm just picking my leg up really efficiently and didn't really know what was going on. So when you see those still photos of me and it's like up by my face, I'm not really aware of that. For me, it's just like this loosey-goosey kind of thing that I'm trying to preserve energy and see if I can go towards the plate without feeling like I'm fighting myself.
That's interesting. Yeah, because Dwight Gooden, his leg did get up there, and I'm sure that if you're not looking in the mirror, you probably thought you were doing it exactly like he did.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? And like to have yours get it way up there, because I looked at it and I'm like, man, how strong, you're a slender dude. I mean, I was looking at your deal earlier. It said 6'3", 185 or something like that. I don't know if that was your playing weight, but how strong your legs have to be to get in that position all the time. I've been helping some kids around town with Sean Marone. You remember strength guy, and last night we're kind of hammering home balance and how you want to get to the same position. First at your balance point, on your pillar leg, you want to try to get there as many times as you can, right? And be able to hold that so you can get your hand to where you want to as consistently as possible. You think with the more movement in your mechanic, the harder it would be to repeat, but you repeated it for a long time, bro. I didn't know that. I don't know why I think I was sitting down here and there's that picture that you had signed for me when we were out at Eastgate Mall. Smokey, yes. That's a mistake. And then you mentioned the mechanics. I was like, wow, I can't believe I've never really asked that. So that's crazy. You had the tire swing. I had a mattress with duct taped X's on it. That's what I threw to.
Yeah, that leg kick. You'd never teach that to a kid because for the most part, most people have a little bit of tightness in their hamstrings. They have a hard time touching their toes easily when they bend over. I always had loose hamstrings, so it allowed me to get in that position and still stay with my upper body forward and not be rocking back. If you pick your leg up and you rock back, it's a big no-no to repeat like you're talking about. And because mine were loose enough to stay forward and in this position, it allowed me to be consistent, keep my head still, and be able to still throw strikes.
Well, so that's somewhere where and we're talking about obstacles, and I know it didn't turn out to be an obstacle. You lifting weights, while you were a young man, but when you got to pro ball, me now thinking of how the game's evolved and how ahead of your time you were and how in tune with your body that you had to be, that most kids, that age weren't, because it wasn't, necessarily mainstream at that point to be out there lifting weights all the time. Like you say hip flexor, and like right when you say it, like flick the toe up, like I get it. And I'm like, wow, my hip flexors have always been really tight. So that was probably something that kind of created my mechanics for me a little bit, was because that's how I can be efficient without wearing my legs down. And you with the little flick of the toe, yeah, man, you got to be pretty in tune with your body, kids at home, if you're listening. Number one, balance point. Try to find the balance point, and then maybe you can throw. Man, you had to have been close to 2,500 innings in the big leagues or something, huh?
Yeah, about that. And the thing is, too, for kids is like you have to realize that everybody's body's made completely different, right? You can't try to duplicate somebody else's mechanics if you don't have the ability to do that just out of pure biology, the way you were born, right? Some people have more room in their shoulder and they don't have any irritation, and some people things are grinding against each other and you've got to really maybe use a different arm angle to make sure that isn't getting worse or whatever. There's many reasons that you have to find your lane and use that, because if I would have tried to pitch like somebody else and take away that leg kick, it probably would have hurt me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it gets you so you talk about biology, and I'm trying to, these kids they're 10 years old. I'm talking to last night, and, I don't even understand complete physiology and how everything's working together. But I know that you build a house, the strongest part is the foundation, right? I mean, so you want to start working from your base up. So if you can kind of get that locked in at a young age, and also talking to these kids about, as pitchers, there's only so much we can do to get better. Like we can't take 500 swings off of the tee like a hitter. We can only make so many throws. So how do you find other ways to get better? That's getting comfortable and feeling with your balance point and stuff like that. I know we got off on a little side tangent there, but I'm just talking about your mechanics. I wanted to know why, but
that's a good point though. People ask me a lot about what kind of advice you would give a kid. And part of it is what you just said there is you usually can't take so many reps as a pitcher because your arm can only take so many throws. And that's why I'm always in favor of throwing more volume at less intensity, because if we can throw 60 pitches in the bullpen at 80% versus, 35 at 100%, one is you're taking less chance of getting hurt. You're also building volume into the arm and into your mind just mentally to be able to, endure a long inning. And also you're working on this stuff, without having to shut it down because your arm is killing you, right? So you get to go a little bit longer and experience what it feels like to throw that breaking ball back door. And you can do it many times because you're not throwing so hard. And then in the end, it also gives you a plan B for days when things aren't going right. And maybe you need to throw the 68-mile-an-hour breaking ball instead of the 75-mile-an-hour one because you're like, oh, I can do that because I do that in the bullpen sometimes. And all those things play into having a long career and a healthy body.
Yeah, and that's the pitchability part about, today's game that I miss is, we would go out there and say, all right, man, I got 80% of what I normally got today. But I know how to use the 80% to be, I'm going to give you the 100% of my 80%. And if that means, the 68-mile-an-hour hook or, a couple more, sidearm change-ups or whatever you used to throw up there. Well, that slop you used to throw up there for 15 years, but that's truth. Like, now it's got to be max effort all the time because, if you can throw 100, they don't want to let off the gas on the first pitch fastball to throw it 93 for a strike because if somebody happens to ambush them, they're like, man, I got beat on 93 when I got 100 in the pocket. They don't have confidence in their plan B these days, so it's all got to be plan A or DL.
Yeah, absolutely. And then they go to another plant. They go to an A+ in the bullpen, and they run 4 A+ out there, and they feel like that's their best advantage. But for me, it's taking the beauty out of what it is to be a starting pitcher. And if you watch some guys like Max Scherzer or a Cole, with the Yankees, they're still doing it old school. They start the game a little softer. I loved watching Kurt Schilling in those 04 days. He'd start the game at 91, 92, he'd be at the knees, split finger, he's getting his outs. You'd never see him move from that until it was a guy on second base. And now it went to 97 and instantly. And it was like to have those two gears was so watch. I mean, if Kurt didn't get, if he didn't throw 230 innings in a season, he was irritated. I mean, guys now, they train them to come from the minor leagues that as soon as they pass the 5-inning mark, they've got 15 outs. They're like, oh, whew. You see him like give a sigh of relief. I mean, Kurt was irritated if he didn't get into the 7th every single night.
And that, so I love the, Hunter Green with the red. You watched him. I think he started to do some this year, which I love that. I'm calling it comfortable maximum to all these kids that I talked to. I can't remember who said it to me. I want to say his name was Butch Henry. He was my first pitching coach in Billings, Montana in 05, my first year in pro ball. And he started, I'm out there, I got a pretty good arm. I just got drafted and, I'm kind of all over the place a little bit. He's like, man, figure out how hard you can throw it where you want it. If that's 80% of what you got, then find 80% and be able to hit that target 8 out of 10 times. Okay. So if that's 80%, do it there, practice it there. Once you've got that dialed in, go to 85%, see if you can still do it. And then you're trying to climb the ladder to where your location and your stuff are as high as possible. Right. So for me, that was, it was the 91-mile-an-hour fastball. Like that was my comfortable maximum to be able to locate. Obviously, it's going to change a little bit on day to day, but, just finding out what you can do the most. And another tangent. So Hunter would start, like you were talking about Kurt, Hunter would start the game 94, 95, 96. And then when he gets in trouble, it's 99, 100. That saves the pitching coach from having to come out there and have a visit because you just brought in an A+ reliever without having to change a reliever. You've got a whole nother guy that just showed up to the game because they've been seeing 94, 95. Man, I'm telling you, but you go from 94, 95, 99, 100 is a different animal. So, yeah, but you haven't had to make a pitching change. You haven't shown him your best stuff while you're still getting outs at, your 85, 90% pitchability. Your plan A, and here's plan B with the guy on second base. I'm going to blow your doors off.
Right. And that's why by the end of the season, you saw Hunter feeling like a guy who was old school, who was getting into the second night, even if he gave up 3 or 4 runs early. Right. And then
still 7.
And what that does is it also builds this confidence between your teammates and management. And when I'm out on the mound, I know I look frazzled in the second inning here, but don't worry because you've seen me do this so many times, which was part of how I survived for such a long time, which was that, people believe that I could give us a chance to win, even if it looked horrible in the beginning, right? And that all plays to having a long career and getting opportunities when you're maybe not 100% healthy and teams will still give you a shot, right? There's all these reasons why I think pitching at max effort for 5 innings and missing the bat on every single swing is, to me, it's terrible.
I agree. But I think that's funny because, man, so when I came up, I was long relief for whatever swing man. And for the most part, they saved me for Edson Volquez Day But there was every once in a while, Smoke Dog would get in a little bit of trouble there in the first or second, give up that early 3-run homer, and it's like Sammy starts stretching out a little bit down there. 6 2/3 scoreless later. I'm done for the day.
Yeah, and if
you hadn't proven it early, you wouldn't have continued to get the opportunity. And I mean,
right.
Who knows what would have happened otherwise?
And when I say 5 innings missing the bat on every single swing at max effort is terrible, I don't mean that it's terrible in the math of winning a baseball game. I mean it's terrible for the starter, for his career, for all the things that come along with it, except for maybe some wins and losses, right? If you want to put baseball players and make them just a cog in a machine, and we just give you 5 and leave, and give you 5 and leave. That's fine, but you might have to pay guys, $30 million a year for 5 innings. And I just don't think it's very sexy.
I don't either. And it's, and maybe that's just because of how you and I, went about it, how our styles of pitching were. It was, making up some shit on a Tuesday that, we just like, this is what we got. I'm going to start, there were games I started throwing a split finger. I just because Hannigan comes out and starts calling a cutter, and I'm like, bro, I don't even throw a cutter. He's like, yeah, but you can. And he's like, so I'm out there throwing cutters in San Francisco to Pablo Sandoval, just so there's the artistry of it that you and I love to watch. And, I do think it's missing from the game. With that said, talking about artistry, talk about some guitar, talk about what you've been up to post-playing career. And, if you want to add in something to the effect of, baseball prepared me for being a musician in this way, cool. If not, just tell what have you been up to? I know you're coming out with a new album. Tell me about the trajectory since you got done playing to get you to this point, because I've listened to it. We're going to plug it and tell you where you can find it at the end of the show. He's going to play you a little lick, but it's really good stuff. So tell us about that, Bronson.
Yeah, I was playing guitar all those years and playing in cover band while I was playing baseball, but post baseball, it's gotten a little bit more serious. I've got a little bit more time on my hands, and you find that you need something to grind on, right? If you playing at the top of the mountain, right? I mean, if we call the top of the mountain the World Series, we're playing a notch below that, for 162 games, year after year after year. And those butterflies you get when you're listening to the national anthem before you pitch, it's hard to duplicate that in regular life. So having something to dig into has been nice. And so, I'm playing around town, around Cincinnati, 15, 20 times a year with my cover band. You can catch that stuff on Bronson Arroyo's band Facebook page. There's usually, it's updated schedule. But, I've also been writing with a kid around town named Joe Jordan. He's 29 years old. He's starting to put his own stuff out. And we started writing all these folky songs. And last year I put out a rock record last February that I'd written. But these songs are just really, really on a whole nother level as far as storytelling. They're a little simpler.
Was the one you put out last year, was that the one that you were doing during COVID out in LA?
Yeah. So that one was called Some Might Say.
I mean, and I was honest with you about it. Like, I didn't love that, even though it was probably a little bit more geared to the style of music that I hear you play, the kind of grunge rock, whatever it was. Like, yes, it felt that way. But this album that you've done now with Joe is, I mean, I don't know, dude, there's some freaking fabric to it. Like, I really like it.
Yeah, there's more meat. There's more meat in the stories. I mean, it can give you goosebumps. It can make you cry. Yeah. It's definitely on another level storytelling. And that's mostly to do with Joe. I bring the idea every time we write a chord change and maybe hum a melody and have an idea of what I want to write this about. But filtering it through his mind, lyrically, he's on a whole nother level than anybody I've been around. And he's brought these things to life. And I'm just really enjoying them. They're coming out tomorrow, November 22nd. It's going to hit all the platforms wherever you listen to your music. And,
what's the name? What's the name of this one?
This one's called Bronson Arroyo Life Lessons because I've got 8 songs that are coming out.
Perfect, dude. Perfect. Fits right into the idea of the show. I mean, this is what we're trying to give us, some life lessons, and that's the name of your album. I didn't even know that until right now.
Yeah, so that's that one, and then there'll be another 8 coming out probably in 60 days that I've already done all my parts. We're just finishing production, but all the songs are usually they're like really beautiful stories of life, about people dying, of great loves, of terrible heartbreak, all those things Joe really loves to dig into and write about, and it's been fun to play these songs for people and get a reaction that I haven't gotten from my own personal music in the past.
So, and I'll try to stop making all these parallels, but when we talk, you and I talk about this when we go out and play golf. I mean, some of the parallels of pitching to golf, and talking with Sean McGarry, the dude who, by the way, I went to tell you that the other day. Like, I was sitting around playing, and I remember when I came into town and I asked you specifically, like, "Hey, man, who can I get some guitar lessons from around here?" And you told me Sean. Little did I know that I already knew Sean. I met him at the FC game. I told you that, but he's been awesome. But Sean and I will talk about the same thing, the parallels of baseball to rock star. Just a couple things before you play us a little bit is, how did baseball, you talked about grinding on something. I mean, the baseball, you love the grind of the 162 games. Talk about how that kind of mindset has come into your guitar playing and writing these albums and writing these songs and wanting something to grind on.
Yeah. It can be exhausting sometimes. Just writing is mentally tough. Learning the craft, coming down in the basement for an hour and a half a day and playing for yourself at night and seeing if you can just bring a different, can I sing that softer? Can I play a little slower? Right. You're trying out all these different things. And also, you get in front of people. You played guitar for a year and you stand in front of a crowd and it'll suck the oxygen right out of your lungs. It'll make your hands feel like they're sweaty, like you're nervous. There's all these things that are parallel to what we went through as a baseball player. So learning to kind of suppress that adrenaline, learning to kind of slow it down and stay in the moment, right? Can you focus on the grass around the mound is kind of the same thing as can you play the music for yourself? I'll stand on stage now a lot of times and I'll go up there purposely and say, I'm going to play this whole set for the next 2 hours as if I was playing with the boys in the garage. And part of that is just trying to, not that you're not trying to give any
performance
crowd, you're giving a performance, but you're trying to stay inside this bubble of enjoyment to really take in the music as you're performing. And that's hard to do sometimes. I remember the first time I stood on a stage with Eddie Vedder and played the guitar, it was just me and him on a stage in Orlando in 2012. And we're playing Black, and I couldn't enjoy the performance because I was so worried about messing the guitar part up. So I'm playing the guitar part, focusing on that. I'm not really listening to Eddie that much.
Yeah.
Forward a couple of years, and I'm standing on stage with Pearl Jam in Fenway Park, and we're playing Black. And this time, I'm played enough that I'm standing up there performing and enjoying it as if I was in the crowd. And that is two totally different things.
Wow.
So to be able to do that is part of the reason why in baseball I could get away with throwing 85 miles an hour, because I was so comfortable in my skin in that environment that I could let full potential out of whatever it is that I had.
That's kind of getting to controlling the controllables. I talk about, your preparation, put in all the work, and then try to go out there and be able to have, trust in the work that you put in, for you on the mound with the things that you did. You got out of Pittsburgh, they took the gloves off and you started to blossom into that rock star that you knew you could be on the mound. And the same thing there, you did enough work with the guitar to be able to stand on the field at Fenway Park with Pearl Jam, bro. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah. It's been a great ride. I mean, just thinking, throwing that tennis ball against the wall as a 7-year-old kid, as many of us did, dreaming of making that last out in the World Series, and then parlaying that into some of your favorite musicians and standing on stage with the Counting Crows after the All-Star game in 06 in front of a packed house here in Cincinnati. Like, these things you couldn't have dreamt up. And you just keep trying to ride the wave. You keep trying to give out goodness and give out love to people wherever you are, and be punctual and all those things. And you see it kind of, your reputation precedes you in the end, and hopefully good things come your way.
Well, you're doing great things, brother. I want to pick up that guitar and give us, let's see what you've been working on. And maybe we'll be hearing you play this. Maybe it'll be Eddie Vedder coming up on stage to play with Bronson Arroyo at Fenway Park here in a couple of years to this one.
Take that.
So tell us a little bit about this song and then give us a lick.
This is one of the prettier ones on the record. This is called This Kind of Love. A lot of them are sad stories, but this one's pretty. It goes, summer days wrapped in a haze, wrapped in your hazel eyes. Hear them say it's just a phase. Young love ain't for life. I don't know if love's got legs. I can walk you home till forever ends. Autumn nights, pretty leaves, bringing out your smile. Take you back to memories of when you were a child. I don't know, but I don't know. We should ride this wave. Let's see how far it goes. 'Cause this kind of love ain't for the weak. It's a four-lane highway and driving at light speed. Let the seatbelt be your arms, let the airbag be your heart, and just let your love come crashing into me. This kind of love ain't meant for all. Give and take, some folks try and take it all. You only get what you put in, so I'll give you everything and just let your love come crashing into me. I said, oh, I loved you from the start. Oh, I know the world gets dark. But oh, you always had my heart. You always had my heart, girl. You always had my heart. This kind of love ain't for the weak. It's four-lane highway and driving at light speed. So reach out and take my hand, 'cause I'll always be your man. And just let your love come crashing into me.
I love it, dude. Folks, I can tell you that if it doesn't come through very clear on this, I have heard these live and they're amazing. Bronson's done a great job writing this new album. Tell them the name of it again. What's the album and where to find it?
It's called Bronson Arroyo Life Lessons. You can catch it anywhere you listen to music: iTunes, Spotify, Apple Music, any place that you like to go, Deezer, all the small ones. It'll be up after Friday, November 22nd. And, I took the picture myself in my closet,
Yeah.
quick with my iPhone. I mean, these things are recorded, just me playing the guitar for the most part, and a couple of buddies playing piano and cello and just mixed into here in Loveland. It's really authentic and kind of low key, but it's some beautiful stories.
Yeah, it really is. And you got the Bronson Arroyo fan page on Facebook, and they can probably get all the updates.
They can get updates on the Bronson Arroyo Band Facebook page. Yeah, those are all live performances, and that's when we're playing mostly Pearl Jam stuff, or sometimes it's a mix of Beatles, Nirvana. It depends. When we play with the Hot Red Chili Peppers and Brett James, my buddy, we play all Pearl Jam. That's coming up November 30th. That's our last show of the year. We're playing over at Little Miami Brewing Company.
Okay. Which is a cool place. Yeah, I've gone and seen Sean up there. Like, that's a cool venue.
Good, really cool venue. It's a nice wedding venue. It makes you feel cozy and comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, good food. They got good food. Little brewing company. They got beers. Bronson, man, I appreciate you coming on. I hope that we can, get some people to come on and listen to this. You always have such a great perspective on things. And, I appreciate it, man. So from my end of it, ladies and gentlemen, it's been Bronson Arroyo. It's been Sam LeCure. It's been Pearls from the Diamond. And you can find it probably all the places that he just said that you can find his album. So I know you're going to go look for his album. So take your ass over and put like on my page too while you at it. Don't get me wild. That's a mistake.
That's a mistake.
All right, brother. I'll holler at you later. I need to text you about something anyway. So thanks for coming on, bro.